misty mountains, in forests dark and vast, a family in a cottage were wretched and downcast. Father, Frank, a miner in the nearby silver mines, with wife and 7 children, they lived amongst the pines. Their lives were good and simple, until one winter's day the man fell ill and took to bed, and there he had to stay. He could not dig for silver, he could not hunt for food, he could not tramp the forest floor in search of firewood. The mother, Marta, worried, she'd so many mouths to feed. She had a plan to help them all, so urgent was their need. She'd go into the forest, gather pine cones and then dry them, then take them off to market where she hoped that folks would buy them. And if not, at least she'd have some fuel that they'd require to keep them warm and cook the meagre soup upon the fire. Marta set off through the woods, a shawl to keep her warm, some sturdy boots upon her feet, a basket on her arm. The snow fell gently down, the path rose steeply through the trees. The evergreens were thinly spaced and rustled in the breeze. And as the lady bent right down and picked up several pine cones, she heard a snap, a footstep, had a shiver in her bones. Was there someone watching her, hidden in the trees? "Hello," she called. "Who is there? Do not harm me, please." A voice rang out. "You must not gather pine cones from this ground. The woodland's bare, it needs the seeds from cones that you have found. Go further up the mountain where the trees grow thick and green. You'll find up there's plenty of fine fir cones to be seen." Marta stared, and as she did, saw brightly glinting eyes, a wrinkled face, a long white beard, a man of compact size. So fearful was the lady that her voice made not a sound as she tipped her basket over, dropped the pine cones on the ground. Marta hugged her woolly shawl, for the air was growing cold. The sun was sinking, colours changing, blue to deepest gold. Far above, the cawing rooks were roosting for the night. Marta, undecided, not recovered from her fright, should she go into the forest that was deep and dark and still? The sun had gone, the mist came down, the mountain air felt chill. The softly bristled branches brushed the ever-darkening sky, and the crowns of trees were whispering and seemed to give a sigh. The forest, like a treasured church, was hushed and grandiose, and sounds of old songs drifted round and seemed so very close. "Come, come, come into the forest, we will wrap our arms around you. Up, 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 onto the mountainside, and our arms will lovingly surround you." And Marta, taking comfort from the forest's gentle song, picked up her empty basket and embraced the woodland throng. She gazed up high at branches, at the stars at heaven's door, then searched for spiky pine cones down upon the forest floor. As soon as Marta bent to pick the first cone that she saw, she heard a noise quite similar to that she'd heard before. She felt a pain upon her back. The cones fell down like hail. "This place is cursed," the lady cried. Her face it turned quite pale. And as she ran, the cones rained down. The basket seemed so weighty. Her frozen fingers icy cold, her arms were feeling shaky. She ran and ran back down the hill, along the snowy path, until back home she came once more, fatigued and out of breath. She tossed the basket on the floor, her arms and legs a quiver. The cones rolled out and shouts were heard. "These cones are made of silver." "Is it magic?" Marta asked, feeling half afraid. "I think I know," said husband Frank. "Please don't be so dismayed." I think these silver pine cones may have been a generous gift from a dwarf king known as Gubich, who likes to give a lift to those who suffer harder times, whose hearts are good and kind. We have been blessed by this good man, protector of mankind. The pine cones glistened where they lay. The family stood and smiled. They'd sell the cones, but put by 7, one for every child. So Martha went to market and returned with loaded sled. They feasted well that evening on fine stew and fresh baked bread. They all held hands and said their thanks for what they had received. The future looked more certain now. They all felt so relieved. Frank, whose illness had not gone, said, "Here's what we must do. Martha, go to Gubich, for thanks to him are due, and maybe he can help us. I really have a feeling that he'll know a spell or potion that will help me with my healing." Off to the forest Martha went to seek the kind dwarf king, taking gifts of thanks for him, their grateful offering. Without a word from Martha, the man knew what she'd need. "Pick some leaves from this tree here, and take these firm brown seeds. Brew them up and make a tea that Frank will need to drink every day for 2 whole weeks. This will work, I think." Martha listened doubtfully, but gathered what she must. The tea she brewed looked horrible, but Frank said he had trust that Gubich, kind protector, could only mean them well, for he cared for all the people that in forests meekly dwell. And day by day Frank drank the tea and gradually grew stronger. The medicine was set aside, not needed any longer. From that day on, the family thrived, their health and wealth restored. The kindness of a stranger would never be ignored. The 7 children soon left home, their silver cones went with them. Passed down the generations, always felt the love within them. And many people to this day paint pine cones in December, their shining silver signifying things we must remember. For Gubich, Dwarf King, teaches us that kindness is the deed that keeps us happy, fills our hearts with all the love we need. Upon a winter's morning, when the day had just begun, the icy dewdrops on the grass were sparkling in the sun. Amidst the snowy garden, upon a frozen shed, stood a small and fluffy robin, nibbling holly berries red. The frosty fence post glittered, and the fir trees sighed and swayed. The earth breathed out a wispy mist that round the woodland played. The robin felt so joyful that he couldn't help but sing, as clearly as a choir with their Christmas carolling. The robin had a job to do upon this Christmas morn. He'd done it every year since the day that he was born. A Yuletide carol for the king to greet this special day. He must depart this very hour and leave without delay. But across the snowy footpath some velvet paws did glide, and in the corner of his eye a glossy cat he spied. "Little Robin, may I ask you where you might be travelling?" "I'm flying to the castle to perform my Christmas carolling." "I can take you there myself if you snuggle into my fur." Thank you, Mistress Cat, but I'd really much prefer to make my own way there, for I've seen you with a mouse, who you never quite successfully returned to his wee house." Robin flew above the wintry hills blanketed in snow, until he stopped to take a rest beside the wild hedgerow. And as he nibbled on a haw still clinging to a branch, he heard a whoosh of feathery wings and then a little crunch. And when he looked, he saw a hawk with sharp and hooky beak, who saw the robin sitting there and then began to speak. "Little Robin, may I ask you where you're going this day?" "I'm off to sing my Christmas song at a castle far away." "I can take you there, young chap, upon my wings so strong." Thank you, Mr. Hawk, but correct me if I'm wrong. I think I saw you yesterday with a sparrow in your claws, and I'm feeling slightly nervous that I'll end up in your jaws." Robin flew into the centre of a thick and thorny tree. He'd wait until the hawk had gone, and then he'd fly off free. He dived down through the thistles, swooped across the snow-capped heather, and he took a rest upon a rock, the north wind in his feathers. And he smelt a musky stench, spied a large and furry tail, then saw the fox prick up his ears, and felt himself turn pale. "Little Robin, may I know what is your destination?" "I'm off to see the king to sing a Yuletide celebration." "Then why not climb onto my tail, and I will take you there?" Mr. Fox, that's very kind, but I am quite aware that you caught a lamb between your teeth a day or two ago, so your offer of a ride I politely will forego." The robin flew up high, and the castle soon was seen. He flew down to the bedroom window of the king and queen. Beneath the window, from the ivy, whistling could be heard, and Robin saw his little friend, a tiny plump brown bird. The duo sang together, Robin Red and Jenny Wren. The king and queen delighted at these sounds they heard again. This merry midwinter music just made their hearts rejoice. Let one and all be happy, and sing with one glad voice. Merrily we sing our happy Christmas song, a message we must bring. Joyfully we revel with the woodland throng, give thanks for the newborn King. Many, many years ago, upon a lonesome hill, a hush fell through a manor house as snow lay thick and still. An old man lay, his breathing slow, his sons around his bed. "To you, my youngest, all my wealth is yours when I am dead. To you, my eldest son, I leave, although it seems unfair, a shabby cottage, ox and ass, an orchard tired and bare. A custom cruel, but this is how the future came to pass." The brothers sadly bowed their heads. Their father breathed his last. The youngest son was filled with greed. His wealth he would not share. He sold the big house, moved away, and left his brother there. The eldest son, whose name was Ben, was caring, calm, and kind. "I have a job to do," he thought. "I really do not mind." The cottage was quite tumble down. It needed much repairing. The ox's leg was rather lame. The donkey looked despairing. And in the orchard apple trees were ancient, destitute. For many years they had not borne the merest hint of fruit. Through winter, spring, and summer, Ben worked his very best. But times were tough. He did not have much money in his chest. Yet, day by day, he laboured long. He could improve his lot. He tidied up the hedgerows, and he mowed the grassy plot. To make the donkey fit and well, he fed him with fresh hay. The ox's leg, with healing balm, grew better day by day. The stable for the animals was fixed to keep them warm. The cottage, too, was mended, and it kept Ben safe from harm. All summer through the animals were in the orchard grazing, manured the roots of every tree. The changes were amazing. No apples yet, but hope was there with summer sun and rain. The strength returned to roots and sap, the trees would bud again. For Ben was such a kindly man, he tended to those trees, touched them gently, spoke to them, and whispered in the breeze, "O spirit of the apple tree, please bless these trees with vigour, so when the spring returns again, their buds will grow much thicker." Ben was sure he heard a breath amongst the branches leafy. "Remember us on Christmas Eve, and we'll reward you freely." Around the orchard autumn winds were gusting, cold and shrill. Man and beast stayed close as they prepared for winter's chill. As winter came, they shivered through the frost and ice and snow. Staying warm was quite a job, the fire was burning low. Ben's younger brother visited, said, "Why freeze when you have plenty? The orchard there has trees to chop." But Ben just stared intently. "No finger on those trees I'll lay, no axe shall harm their bark. Instead, dead wood I'll gather when my home grows cold and dark." So though the winds blew harsh and chill, and outside it was snowing, with broken branches, wood now dead, Ben kept his fire glowing. And round the fire they huddled, and to fill the dark days long, they planned for future happy days, and sang a merry song. Sing merry-o, the trees are all at rest, and we can wish for warmer days and hope that we are blessed. With apples, tasty apples, rosy, succulent and sweet. Sing merry-o, fine apples we shall eat. When Christmas Eve arrived at last, Ben only had one thought, his promise to the apple trees, the offering they sought. For in these parts, tradition told that man was the provider, must offer to the apple trees a mug of spicy cider. Upon the roots Ben poured his last few drops of cider there. The robin too had cider toast hung on the branches bare. And Ben he sang and made a noise, the donkey joined in too. The evil spirits must be gone to see the winter through. O apple tree, grow sturdy, tall and fair, with buds and blossoms in the spring, crisp apples you shall bear. Sing merry-o, fine apples you shall bring. But listen now, I offer you my apple wassailing. And so the weeks went slowly by. The weather was less wild. The sun's bright rays warmed up the earth. The air was feeling mild. The apple trees soaked up the sun and drank the rain so soft. And soon the buds burst into leaf. The blossom hung aloft. The bees, our busy helpers and nature's great collector, came to blossoms fresh and new to gather all the nectar. And so the summer followed on, the blossoms soon had set. The apples grew and ripened, Ben's dearest wishes met. Oh, thank you, fairest apple tree, for giving me your treasure. To care for you through many months has been my greatest pleasure. He touched the trunk, and as he did, the tree it seemed to know, and offered Ben a shining fruit from branches bending low. Ben took his knife and cut the fruit, and there he saw a star, as if the apple had been sent from heavenly skies afar. The apple was delicious, crunchy, crisp and sweet. Ben felt so contented, his happiness complete. And so at apple harvest the fruit was gathered in. Some were stored for ox and ass, and some for kind old Ben. Ben's labours did not finish as the autumn days went by, for cider making was his task to stock up his supply. The winter came along once more, no kinder than the last, but Ben and ox and donkey had enough for their repast. The dark days here they settled in, stayed warm beside the fire, contented with their simple life, with all they could desire. As Christmas time approached again, Ben gathered boughs of holly to decorate his humble home and make the place feel jolly. The Yuletide log was dragged inside, a branch of fine old ash tree. Their simple fare of Christmas food lay ready in the pantry. Now, far away, Ben's brother had devised a clever plan. He'd heard there was some treasure in the orchard on the farm. On Christmas Eve at midnight, the ox and ass will speak, and I'm fairly certain that they'll know this secret that I seek. So I think I'll pay a visit in the dark of Christmas night and listen to the animals to find out if I'm right. Christmas Eve dawned pale and pink, frost glistened on the grass. At his cottage Ben was out to feed the ox and ass. Later on he lit the fire, put cider on the stove, added honey, spices too, some cinnamon and cloves. Some fresh nutmeg and ginger were stirred into the pot. The taste was quite delicious, comforting and hot. But though he put aside a tot of cider on the shelf, he knew that what he'd made was not intended for himself, and he hugged his hands around the mug, feeling such delight, and walked into the darkness of that snowy Christmas night. And, as last year, he headed to the oldest apple tree, and poured the cider on the roots, and thanked it fervently. He fed the robin with the toast, and sang his song of praise for apples ripe and rosy, and the sunny summer days. O apple tree, grow sturdy, tall and fair, with buds and blossoms in the spring, crisp apples you shall bear. Sing merry, oh, fine apples you shall bring. But listen now, I offer you my apple wassailing. Within the tree a sighing breath, a softly floating breeze, a consequential rustling in the shimmering frosty leaves. Then, from the corner of his eye, Ben thought he saw a shape, subtle and ethereal, a silky flowing cape. A skin of apple green and streaming hair of shining gold. Who was this silent creature with a wrinkled face so old? And then it spoke, so softly that Ben could hardly hear. I am the apple tree man, he said, a guardian always near. I'm here to thank you for your care and give you just reward, and offer you a special gift that secretly is stored beneath the roots of this fine tree. So dig beneath its base. What you shall find is yours to keep from us for your good grace. So Ben knelt down, and soon he found a box decayed and old, and in it many treasures made of silver and of gold. Amongst the objects that he saw some pine cones silver bright, and golden coins, and so much more, his face lit with delight. I do not need this treasure, sir, for nature is my gold, my apple crop, my ox and ass, the fields that round me fold. But I will take good care of it, and use it in good measure, to bring us comfort, coziness, and everlasting pleasure. And while Ben plodded homeward for a scrumptious Christmas meal, his brother crept by silently, in heavy snow concealed. He held his breath as midnight came. He watched the ass and ox to see if they'd reveal to him the hidden treasure box. The midnight hour drew closer, and as true as was the fable, the ox and ass began to talk while huddled in their stable. Ben's brother stood, unseen by all, to see if he could hear the animals discussing if the treasure box was near. To his dismay, it seemed that they had noticed he was there, for what he heard could please him not, though speak he would not dare. However hard that brother seeks, we know one thing for sure. The treasure lives with one whose heart is loving, kind and pure. The younger brother knew right then his life would change direction. He'd show his brother and the world a little more affection. And from that day, Ben's cosy home was filled with fun and laughter. The orchard thrived, the animals too lived happily ever after. Sing merry-o, the trees are all at rest, and we can wish for warmer days and hope that we are blessed. With apples, tasty apples, rosy, succulent and sweet. Sing merry-o, fine apples we shall eat.